of 8 videos in this video therapy course for anxiety. In the last video, I showed you how to get hold of the thoughts that are causing your anxiety. In this video, we're going to start to deal with those thoughts. And we do this by looking at the accuracy and the helpfulness of your thoughts. Because if your thoughts are going to determine how you feel, they at least need to reflect reality and help you move forward in a good way. Let's start with accuracy. So we're not objective, neutral observers of the world. We have a tendency to filter information. So either we minimize information or we focus in on information. So our thoughts can quickly become quite inaccurate. And 2 of the most common inaccuracies are to muddle up possibility with probability and to make our worst case scenario our reality. So we're going to look at each of those in turn, starting with muddling up possibility and probability. So this is when something bad is possible becomes in our mind, something bad is definitely going to happen. So next time your anxiety starts to rise and you notice yourself doing this, ask yourself the question, how likely is it? And your answer needs to be based on facts. So how many times has this scenario occurred? And of those times, how many times has the bad thing happened? Okay, so let's look at taking an aeroplane trip. You might be feeling anxious about that because you're thinking the plane could crash and I could die. Now, this is of course possible. Aeroplanes do crash, but the probability of an aeroplane crashing is 1 in 1.2 million. And the possibility of you dying in that crash is 1 in 11 million. Another example, you have a party to go to and you're feeling anxious about that because you're thinking, I'm going to be left standing in the corner talking to no one. This is, of course, possible. But you might be able to think, you know what, I've been to 10 parties in the last year and I've never stood on my own for longer than a couple of minutes. Finally, you have a big presentation coming up and you're feeling anxious about it because you're thinking, I could blow this and lose my job. This is, of course, possible. But how likely is it that you will make that mistake? How many times in your past have you made a mistake at work that has been so catastrophic that you have lost your job? Okay, now let's look at the second inaccuracy, making your worst case scenario your reality. Now, you're actually programmed to do this by nature, or we are programmed to do this by nature. For our ancestors, it made good survival sense to assume the worst. So, for example, you're foraging by a bush, you hear a rustle. It made sense for our ancestors to think there's something in there that could eat me and to run. The worst that's happened there is that a bit of foraging time has been lost. If you assume it would be okay, or it's going to be okay, there could be a less satisfactory outcome to that scenario. Okay, so this is particularly likely to happen. We're particularly likely to make the worst case scenario our reality when we're feeling anxious. So as your anxiety begins to rise, notice that this is happening. Then identify in detail what the worst case scenario is and work out how you might cope with that. Because if you can cope with the worst case scenario, everything else is a walk in the park. So let's take the presentation scenario as an example. So you do a terrible presentation and your boss threatens to sack you. So how would you cope with that? First of all, you could try talking to your boss. If he still is unreasonable and still wants to sack you for this mistake you made, maybe that wasn't the best place for you to work after all. And this gives you the opportunity to go out in the world and find a job that is better suited to you. Okay, now we've looked at the inaccuracy of our thinking. Let's look at the helpfulness of our thoughts, because sometimes our thoughts can be accurate, but they're not particularly helpful. So whilst trying to escape from the top floor of a burning building, it's very accurate to think, I could die doing this, but it's not a particularly helpful focus. So over the course of the next few weeks, as you're trying to access your thoughts, ask yourself, is my thought accurate? Am I modelling possibility with probability? Am I making the worst case scenario my reality? Also, how helpful is this thought? How helpful is this focus? Is it helping me to move forward? Okay, finally, just before we finish, a quick mention about the monitoring. This can be challenging to do it consistently, to do it every day, but it's really important to monitor your mood at the end of every day. If you've missed a few days, don't worry. Just come back to it as soon as you can. Okay. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to replace those anxious thoughts with thoughts that will trigger feelings of calmness and of confidence. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.